Smartphone manufacturers, some, like Google and Apple, will only release 4 to 5 smartphones a year. And then you've got Samsung and Xiaomi, which will release quite a lot more. Actually, it's difficult to actually gauge how many they release on an annual basis because there's just so many and you'd have to go through an entire list to try and find it, and we don't have the time or attention to do that. But within those lists, you'll tend to get smartphones that get, I guess, lost in the array of announcements. And one of those smartphones is this, the Poco M6 Pro, which for all intents and purposes looks, feels, and spec sheet wise looks great. $250. You get a 6.67 inch AMOLED display, 64 megapixel main camera, 8 to 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabytes of baseline storage, 5000 mAh battery, 120 hertz. Sick. Ticks all the boxes. Love it. Classic $250, $300 smartphone from Xiaomi that looks great. But then when you break it down, this shouldn't really exist, because isn't it a conflict if you've got the exact same smartphone pretty much available on your other sub-brand through Redmi in the Note 13? So yeah, but we're not talking about the Note 13, we're talking about this, the Poco M6 Pro. And personally, we've come up with quite a few issues, I would say, on why we wouldn't really recommend the Poco M6 Pro, and why having this huge array of smartphones that come out every year from Xiaomi, why they shouldn't really exist, to be honest. But first of all, let's talk about the cameras. So Poco M6 Pro cameras. So you get a main 64 megapixel wide, which is capable at recording video at 1080p. We'll get to that in a second. 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro. Classic spec sheets for a phone that sits around this area. And then your front facing camera is 16 megapixel, which is again recording at 30 or 60 FPS at 1080p. Performance, it's okay, I guess. It's basically, the 64 megapixel camera isn't a true powerhouse 64 megapixel camera that you find on some other smartphones. I believe the Poco X6 Pro also has a 64 megapixel camera, which that was an amazing experience. That costs $100 more than this M6 Pro. We'll get to why we buy that over this without question and spend the extra $100. But in general, the performance is okay. Quite a flat color profile, and then if you do get areas where it's slightly brighter, it just shoots the brightness right the way up. It's okay. You're not going to get incredible detail when you zoom it in or whatever have you. But generally speaking, the Poco M6 Pro's camera systems are passable at best. Our issues run into when you've got a 64 megapixel main camera lens and you're only able to shoot video in 1080p at 60 FPS. We recently reviewed the Samsung A55, which is $200 more, has a 50 megapixel main shooter that can do 60 FPS at 4K. The Poco X6 Pro, which is $100 more than this, could also do 4K at 30 FPS. So why has this 64 megapixel camera, its main lens, been reined in to only record at 1080p? And this is a conscious choice that brands are making, where they'll put the spec sheet in and on paper looks amazing, like whoa, 64 megapixel camera, amazing at $250. No, it's nerfed in, it's reined in, it's capped the spec sheet. And this is one of our bugbears with smartphone manufacturers peddling out huge amounts of phones every year, and then you don't get the true value of it. You're better off just having a $150 phone, $350 phone, $500 phone, $700, $900, $1,000, and just call it quits at that. But you're giving everyone the best they can get at that price point. But the Poco M6 Pro's cameras in general are okay at best. So let's talk software. So this is actually running on MIUI 14, so not HyperOS just yet. Now there's a possibility that HyperOS will come to the Poco M6 Pro. It does have the right spec sheet for it, so potentially that's something that will come in the future. But as of recording of this video, there is no availability for HyperOS. In general, software-wise, runs fine, runs perfectly fine. No real issues. That Helio G99 Ultra is doing as it's supposed to. The output's great. Performance is pretty good as well in general, and just getting around, navigating around the menu, checking, news articles, just browsing the web or scrolling through your menus, etc., hot swapping between applications, all as it should be. There can be bits of slowdown. One weird thing we did come up with in software-wise was if you open the camera when the screen was locked, it would close off automatically after like 1 second, regardless of whether you're trying to take a photo or not. Pretty odd. Came across it, can't replicate it for the video, which is really annoying, but that was one of the quirks that we came up with. So that was pretty odd, but generally speaking, the UI runs pretty well on that G99 processor. I think the 8GB of RAM, 256 storage is a nice sweet spot as well in terms of having a good amount of storage and a good amount of power to handle everything. So yeah, navigating around the phone's been pretty good, to be fair. Can't really argue with that. So let's talk about performance, display and sound. So performance on the G99, as we said earlier, with regards to running just the basic software, has been pretty good. But when we kick into gaming, you kind of get a bit more of an extensive look into how it's going to perform. It again performs reasonably well. Now graphics here on Call of Duty are on the lowest setting, just to put that out there. But the output, the fidelity of the graphics, the way it runs, how smooth it is, etc., is again pretty good. Not great, but good enough. Again, factor in $250 smartphone, not overly expensive. It's not a powerhouse like you would get on something like hypothetically like a Xiaomi 14 or 14 Ultra. I would preface this though, the X6 Pro that we reviewed, which you can find in the playlist section on our YouTube channel or linked below in the description, ran at the higher end of graphics and ran what I would say far smoother in terms of how it operated. In terms of the display then, it's an AMOLED display, it's 120 Hz, it's super bright, it's lovely indoors. Outdoors, it peaks at 1300 nits, so it probably won't be great outdoors, but inside, general navigation display is again excellent. In terms of sound, well, we always like to leave this subjectively, but it has a speaker firing from the top, just up here, and speakers from the bottom, but I believe it will only fire, it's stereo, it's going to fire from the top or the bottom, but you're going to get quite a tinny sound in our opinion. But again, we'll pop out the video with some audio, with no audio in the background to allow you to make your own judgments. Pop in the comment section below what your thoughts are on the Poco M6 Pro's sound, video and gaming capabilities. So the Poco M6 Pro, our verdict, final thoughts, summation, whatever you want to call it. I would say, again, at the start of this video, we prefaced the video at the start to say we don't know why this phone exists, and we're going to stick to that, primarily because I don't see what this does that a Redmi smartphone couldn't do, or you could get a much far better experience with something like a Poco X6 Pro. Yes, that is $100 more, and the 150 to 350 jump is quite big, but it's worth it. You're getting better overall screen quality, so the brightness externally is better on the Poco X6 Pro. It processes better, it runs better, the camera system is better, the feel, style, build, everything is better on the Poco X6 Pro compared to the M6 Pro. Now, if you are super cost conscious and you think, 350 is out of my league, there's no point. Well, you can get the equivalent Redmi 13, I believe it is, Redmi Note 13 for $250 as well, which again, better than this phone, has a better processor, better screen technology, and it looks, the one thing as well, it looks better as well. Yeah, the Poco X6 Pro, I'll be honest, we're not fans. Generally, we've reviewed a couple of Poco phones and they've been quite good, but there are some upsides, of course, to this phone, price being one of them. Performance has been decent, not great. It doesn't look too bad. It looks fine, squared off design. It feels sturdy enough. And then the screen brightness is again good, not great. So there are incentives to buy the Poco M6 Pro. If it was us and we had that budget, so around say 250 to 350, we would avoid this and get the Poco X6 Pro. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, as always, peace out.